Spokane Valley could become a sanctuary city of a different
Councilman
kind.
Caleb Collier says that this
I'm proposing that the city of Spokane Valley issue a proclamation stating that our city is a Second Amendment sanctuary city.
Welcome to the fire.
Today on Church and State, the Maverick conservative John Strand. Hello, Christian Patriots, and welcome to Church and State, where we drive morality and religion over tolerance and apathy. And I'm your host, Caleb Collier, once again, your favorite far-right shock jock, and the show that talks about politics and religion. Jesus Christ is our referee, so it's always nice and clean. Real quick, let's point you to the website, churchandstate.media. Fill out this registration form, get our newsletter, bypass all the censorship, and of course, I personally call every single one of you who fills this out, so please do so. Also, check out our most recent episodes, continue to bring amazing guests, hard-hitting topics. Oftentimes, you're not going to find the conversations that we have anywhere else, so please share those with friends, family, and neighbors. Of course, check out the featured guest page. We've had some incredible people over the years. You can click on the name, and it'll take you right to the episode. Also, do some shopping with us. Check out the affiliate program. These are companies that support us, and I personally shop with. Every single one of those, you use the promo code Church and State. Many of them, you'll get a discount. Regardless, you'll be helping to support us here at Church and State. And speaking of support, please hit the donate button for us. Look, we're part of NRBTV, Prepper Broadcasting Network, Faith and Freedom Television. I mean, there's so many different networks that have brought us on over the years. And now national syndication beginning in August here through AM/FM radio. That takes money, ladies and gentlemen. And so if you like the show, you like the content, the guests we have on, please consider donating. Even something like $10 a month can make a world of difference for us. Lastly, if you want to get a hold of us, Church and State 1776 at proton.me. With that, it's my pleasure to bring to you John Strand. He is the Maverick conservative. This is a man who has been at it for a considerable amount of time, whether it was with America's Frontline Doctors. He's been an actor and a model. He's a J6er, was offered a plea deal and ultimately turned it down because it was a lie. And that's the type of person that we need to send to Congress. I should mention, he is running for Congress in Florida. And John, it is a pleasure to have you on the show.
Caleb, it's so great to be back with you. And man, we do need some patriots in Congress. That's the mission and the motto here. And it's an honor to be with you and your audience as we continue to fight for America, because she is worth fighting for.
Amen to that. Yeah. Let me just right off the bat, the Maverick conservative, I mean, I love this. Obviously, I grew up as a fan of Westerns, and, that just makes me think of somebody that's bucking the system. And I'll tell you, when I look at the system, boy, does it need to be bucked.
Good Lord, you're right, man. And, we need to get back to real men in this country, right? And a real man knows what is right and necessary and gets the job done. He is not dependent on other people approving him or doing his job for him. He knows what needs to get done. He has vision looking forward to the future, anticipating danger and risks that need to be taken, and an objective to protect his family, his community, and his country. So that's a man and a patriot. The book I wrote in prison is called Patriot Plea, and it's not only my story, but a challenge to the nation and a call to revive patriotism, what it means and what it's going to take to actually preserve our birthright of freedom that we love and protect and celebrate in this country.
It's a beautiful statement right there. And many people might look at that and say, wait, he was in prison. That's not exactly a feather in your cap to be in prison. But in your case, it 100% is, because you went in at J6, and I believe you were with Dr. Simone Gold at this time. Yep. And you guys are literally just taking pictures. I'm very familiar with your story. You're just taking pictures. I mean, you walked in because they removed the barricades, and it seemed like the federal police and Capitol Police were just kind of welcoming you in. And for that, you get the book absolutely thrown at you, and then they try to bribe you. But proving that you're a man of conviction, you turned that down and spent a number of days in jail.
If people want to know the exact things that happened to me that day on January 6th, they really don't want to miss a video that will blow your mind. You'll find it at johnstrand.com/J6. that link takes you directly to the video I'm talking about. It's about 13 minutes of video footage, but I didn't cut anything out. I just fast forwarded certain ports. So you watch the entire 45 minutes of my journey through the Capitol building, and I narrate what was happening. You got to watch it. It explains everything, and you'll never see it the same way again. But I want to take your listeners to the beginning of my story, because I am called the Maverick conservative. And my dad served in the U.S. Navy. So he was stationed in California, where I was born, in Florida, where my brother was born, Pennsylvania, where my sister was born. So lived all over the nation, and have even lived and worked overseas as an adult. But I grew up loving Top Gun and that patriotism and that American grit. And so that moniker has stuck with me throughout my life. It describes someone that is willing to buck the trend, but ultimately to know what needs to be done, to get it done no matter what the opposition is, and to stay laser focused on your mission, even if everyone else abandons you or comes against you. That's the meaning of Maverick, and that is definitely what we need in Congress. But it's really what we need in American men at this time, because it's really on us as men to reclaim our responsibility in order for our wives and children and our families to fully function the way God intended, and for this entire nation to flourish once again.
Yeah, once again, fully in agreement there. You mentioned California. Your dad was in the Navy. Was that in San Diego? Oh, did we have a... Can you hear me, John?
Yes, I think we had a glitch, but I'm back.
Okay, we had a glitch. What I had said was, you mentioned California, being born in California. I too am a Californian originally. I don't like to claim that all the time, but it's the truth. Right. Your dad was in the Navy. Were you born in the San Diego area then?
My dad was in San Diego for a while. I ended up being born in Monterey, up in the Central Coast area, and then ended up living and working most of my life in Los Angeles. So I was an actor and writer in Hollywood. I also worked as a fashion model in New York City and overseas, worked in music, filmmaking, all kinds of things, and then applied those skills and talents when COVID came crashing down around all of us, completely changed. It turned my life upside down as it did for most. But I really had an opportunity and a challenge at that time. First of all, because of the foundation I had of Judeo-Christian values, of actually reading God's word, of being taught how to read and to think at an early age by parents who sacrificed in order to homeschool their kids. Because of that incredible foundation, which I openly advocate for, it's the secret to saving the country, rejecting government schools and putting parents back in control of the children as they are growing them and teaching them. But I had that foundation, so I instantly recognized the fraudulent scheme that COVID was. I'm talking from January 2020. I knew this was a scam, and I knew it was tyranny in real time. I also understood the BLM Marxism driving the summer of love in that same period was also driven by demonic lies and was a strategy to erode and subvert the social fabric of our American culture and society, and to defeat and destroy us. So I organized a freedom rally pushing back against those things in Hollywood, of all places, pretty much burned my career down to the ground, but it didn't matter. It was what God called me to do, and I needed to do it. President Trump tweeted that rally because of how successful it was, vibrantly drawing tens of thousands of conservatives and freedom-loving Americans to LA, of all places. And that's how I actually met Dr. Gold and began working as the creative director of America's Frontline Doctors and GoldCare.com, which I'm still excited to be in the medical freedom fight, working for both of those companies now here in Southwest Florida.
I mean, I applaud so much of what you just said and what you've done. A similar position, you know, I immediately recognized COVID for what it was and immediately started rallying in my home state of Washington. But that needed to happen. You know, you needed, regardless of what was going to come your direction. And I mean, at this point, you're in like literally like one of the darkest areas imaginable, LA, and on top of that, you're in Hollywood. You're doing acting and modeling and writing. I mean, as a conservative, I would imagine you kind of felt like an island in that environment quite a bit.
Definitely, and that was a big part of why I was there and what I was doing. I got started early on in music, I was a lead singer and writer in a rock and roll band, and then got into acting and modeling and all those things, but I always had a passion for affecting the culture, for creating amazing art that would inspire people and tell a story, and give a channel to really proclaim the gospel through my life, through my values, and through my ideas that God's given me. And I really felt it was important that we as Christians Christians and as the church wake up to realize that we've been sold a lie. We've completely abdicated our duty and responsibility as Christians to be contending for the truth and to be building God's kingdom in all arenas. The entire earth belongs to the Lord. That certainly includes Hollywood and Washington, D.C. And yet media and government has been abandoned by Christians in the church, and then we wonder why it's the darkest, blackest, most evil place we can find in our country. None of the Christians, largely, are really there contending for it. Now, there are Christians there. I was one of them, and I'm so grateful and honored for those brave believers and American patriots that continue to try to make a difference, but we need more people to step up to that plate and realize the whole earth is the Lord's, and as Americans, we're in charge of our own government. This is a constitutional republic, and that's a gift God gave us. He expects us to be grateful and to preserve and protect it.
Well, I got to tell you, you already hit one of my buzzwords. Anytime I hear a politician talking about our constitutional republic instead of our democracy, I'm like, all right, there we go. Applause.
Yeah.
That's the kind of person I'm looking for.
On the right wavelength. Yeah.
Exactly, because there is a difference, and it's honestly a significant difference there. I want to ask you about your faith, though. You mentioned you're brought up in a Christian home. Obviously, your dad's serving in the Navy, so it's a patriotic home as well. You're homeschooled, and once again, I applaud what you said about getting kids out of the government indoctrination centers, which is really what they are. But
100%
throughout your life and all that you've experienced and the persecution, was there ever a time where you were questioning your faith or having a hard time with it?
That's a great question. And I have had a very solid foundation. I've always pursued a direct relationship with Jesus and with God that has become increasingly real and meaningful to me over the years. And yet that doesn't mean I'm just this rock solid Christian that's never had struggles or anything like that. Far from it. I've had very severe struggles with depression, with anxiety, and even with simply feeling lost or aloof or not really understanding or sensing that my relationship with God is vibrant the way that I understand it intellectually, that he wants it to be. And, that's really on me, not on God. I'm learning that more and more all the time. But it is a journey. It is a process. God promises us that he doesn't expect us to get it all right. He knows we're human. That's why he's been gracious to save us the way that he has through the gospel. And the gospel's it's kind of like the climax of the greatest story ever told. So I love to put this in the mindset of a movie because I'm an actor and that's the background I have, but I love telling those stories and participating in them. That's something I talk about in the book. And by the way, go to johnstrand.com and get this book. It's also on Amazon. Patriot Plea. It will truly change your life. I promise you that. This book is, like I said, not only my story, although my story is absolutely extraordinary. It's bonkers. You can barely believe it's a true story, but it is. Firsthand witness testimony account of actual abuse and government weaponization, putting political hostages in prison in the United States of America. It sounds surreal to say it, but looking at it on the screen, it's like, that looks like a movie. I think it will be one day, but it'll be based on a very true story. So the details of this story are so powerful, but the book Patriot Plea is really a grand narrative of the American story. And I weave in these themes from various movies that I've loved over the years because they can be really powerful allegories. And the gospel itself from the Bible is the most compelling climax of the most exciting story ever told, and we're still living that story right now today. We're still in the movie. So it's really cool when you look at it that way, but there's a lot to be learned, and your faith is just kind of the glue of all of this. But it really is everything to me, and it's what's made my journey certainly meaningful and positive, and it's what's kept me sane. As you'll learn in the book, there were some really, really dark moments, and only the grace of God and his power has kept me sane, safe, alive, and healthy now, ready to tackle a new challenge running for Congress at johnstrand.com.
I would imagine that, 366 days in prison, I would imagine that your faith came into play here as you're facing what most people would never experience in their lifetime. I would imagine that your reliance on God was just magnified through this.
That's exactly right. I describe in Patriot Plea that the Psalms became three-dimensional. And I thank God was able to get a hold of a Bible. I had not much else going on, especially when I was in isolation. There's a chapter in the book that specifically tells this story. It's shocking, but I was badly abused. Amnesty International and Geneva Convention standards both classify anything beyond 14 days of isolation treatment as torture. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Prisons abused me with isolation for 4 months. And even in isolation in America, there's supposedly rules that they're supposed to follow, which include an hour of recreation per day and a phone call every 7 days. They didn't even give me the hour of rec half the time. When they did, it wasn't outside putting your toes in the grass like you would think recreation is. No, it was just a different corner of a concrete bunker. It was totally insane. But the biggest thing was the phone call. They are supposed to give you a phone call every 7 days at least. That's the difference between life and death. When you are closed up in a concrete shoebox about 10 by 10 with no connection to humanity, you start to literally lose your mind. People commit suicide regularly. It's an awful, abusive, torturous environment. It's absolutely despicable, and it really should be banned. But if you were using it to keep someone safe, supposedly, you have to carefully monitor that. You can't just leave people rotting in isolation for weeks and months. It's unbelievable. So you'll read those details in the story, but absolutely, it was an incredible moment where God is real. I've always known that, but man, I was like digging my fingers into concrete, trying to scratch a grip just to find, like, God, I know you're here, but I need to find you. I need you to hold me. I need you to keep me alive, and I need you to get me out of here. And it was so intense and excruciating, and you get to experience that journey in the book. It's difficult, but I think it's really powerful.
I got to tell you, as you were speaking there, I mean, I'm filled with anger, righteous anger. I would hope, but
Absolutely.
But I'm angry at the circumstances that they put you through, and I would imagine, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would imagine that you wouldn't wish that upon your worst enemy. And as we
Exactly right.
as people gear up to put you into Congress, which I really hope is what occurs. I hope that's the plan of God there. I would imagine that you would be almost on the side of prison reform on this one. That let's just take Mamdani, for example. He's a democratic socialist Muslim. That if he was put in the same situation as you have been in, that you would be an advocate for him, even though you disagreed with him.
Absolutely. I call him Mo Dummy. Mo Dummy wants Mo Kami. So it's absolutely insane that we've even allowed our country to get to a point where we're electing Muslim communists. That's literally insane. And so the proper response there is he immediately needs to be deported. Denaturalized and deported. He does not need to rot in a prison cell endlessly and is certainly in abusive isolation. No, because you're right. It's evil. It's inhumane. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. I think we actually need to make capital punishment and make the death penalty great again, in the sense that it should be a culturally expected norm for violent crime. So first degree premeditated murder needs to have a mandatory death penalty. And it needs to happen before the victim of the person murdered, the family of the victim, before they reach the 1-year anniversary of their death. So it needs to be swift and sure, and it will curtail murder dramatically. But if you're not talking about violent crimes like murder, then most crimes should properly be punished with financial restitution to whoever they harmed with the criminal act, because this allows the victim to be restored and for the offender, the criminal, to restore their reputation by making it right in the form of working to pay off a debt. This is what real justice actually is. This is what God calls for in the Torah. That's the first 5 books of the Old Testament, which are the law, and gave an incredible framework for how to manage a legitimate justice-based society that can maintain itself and provide for human flourishing. So yes, running for Congress at johnstrand.com, I absolutely am a huge advocate for significant prison reform and criminal justice reform. Read the book Patriot Plea, and you'll learn what I learned about how incredibly corrupt the federal prison system is. Particularly, the BOP should be abolished. The states should be managing that. The federal government doesn't need to be in that business at all. But prisons are absolutely a cottage industry to make money for the government. It's unbelievable, the corruption. They're criminal factories importing drugs and liquor and everything else into this cesspool where it just turns around endlessly and racks up money, for government bureaucrats.
I love the idea of her turning it back over to the states. I'm a big advocate for states' rights, and so I so appreciate and approve what you're saying there. And I want to get into your campaign here because I want to use this platform. I do have people that listen in Florida, and if they're wondering about who to vote for, well, here we go. Let's get into some of the policies. So you on your website, johnstrand.com, you have security, affordability, and accountability. And I'd love to go through all three of those and what they mean to you, and specifically, even more importantly, what that would mean to the American people.
Excellent. And so I want people to understand, first of all, every vote in Congress is the same as every other vote in Congress. That's why it's legal for you to make financial contributions to congressional candidates no matter what state they're in. So it's legitimate, but it's also important. You really want to hone in on particular congressional candidates that you find exceptional and support them, specifically with money, because you can't do anything in this world without money. It's simply a token of energy and productivity. So you can't get money completely out of politics. That doesn't even make any sense. Now, is there too much and is it corrupted? Of course. It's a long journey to wade through that and try to fix it. But to start, you need to back outsider grassroots candidates that aren't already funded by corrupt institutions or whatnot. So definitely get involved and donate to candidates that you believe in. Now, here's the policy that people actually care about. At johnstrand.com, our mission is to reclaim the republic, because the American constitutional republic is our form of government, and it belongs to us as we the people. But it's obviously been hijacked by Washington, D.C., and we're all going to have to unite and fight like warriors to get it back. So as a candidate, I'm running to restore courage, common sense, and Judeo-Christian values back into the government so that we can actually end fraud, waste, and abuse that's obviously bankrupting our nation both morally and financially, and then actually deliver what Americans and what Southwest Florida needs, which are those pillars of security, affordability, and accountability. So start, number one, with security. That has to be first. It basically refers to the concept of law and order, which the Democrats are literally trying to throw out the window. It's totally insane. Now, the first thing we have to secure is our elections, because, again, the whole premise here is self-governance, that we choose our leaders and our policy, and it's totally fraudulent. The elections are rigged, and this whole thing has become a farce. So if we can't trust elections and have legitimate elections, we can't vote our way into a better future. We're screwed. So passing the Save America Act, absolutely number one most important thing. Literally nothing else matters until it gets done. These politicians should be tarred and feathered. And I'm teetering on the edge of almost meaning it literally. Like, they should be absolutely reviled and shamed and mocked, and you should be disgusted at them, and you should make it overtly public and painful for them, like political pressure painful, that they are humiliated by the fact that we know they don't give, I don't even know what to say. They don't care about you. They just care about protecting themselves. So we have to push this over the edge and secure elections. That's the number one most important thing about security. But shortly behind that, we have to end the scam of invasion by immigration. And this applies certainly to illegal immigration, but at this point, all immigration is an invasion because it's been so badly abused for far too long. So I'm proposing the 2020 Sovereignty Act. That's 20 years of zero immigration, 20 million deportations accelerated over the next 4 years. I want to see 5 million deportations per year. It's very achievable with basic common sense policy like debanking illegal aliens, cut off the money flow, and they will deport themselves quickly and cheaply, less burden on the taxpayer. We have to enforce E-Verify. We actually have to uphold the law. So that's that security, rule of law concept there. That translates directly into the next pillar, which is affordability. Of course, the thing that Americans, and certainly in Southwest Florida, but all across this country, voters care about one thing more than anything else. Can I actually get through my day and actually live my life, put food on the table, a roof over my head, and protect my children and my future? And it all comes down to affordability, especially in this era where, believe it or not, our entire country and government has become so socialized. Socialism basically meaning the government steals your money and decides how to spend it for you, that no one can afford anything because socialism always makes everyone equally poor. So poverty is the only thing you're going to get guaranteed, protected, and equalized with socialism. And we have a largely socialized government even now, and they're trying to take us directly to communism. It's absolutely insane and antithetical to the founders' design. So I am openly calling to abolish the IRS and abolish federal income taxes. They are totally unconstitutional as a violation of the 10th Amendment principle. So we will abolish the IRS, institute a Paycheck Freedom Act, which will fund the federal budget as necessary through consumption taxes until we can phase it down and reduce the size of the federal government, because the founders intended for tariffs to primarily fund the Treasury, which is to say to fund the federal government. And if we have a small, tailored federal government, in other words, a federal government that fits within the size of the Constitution as was designed, then we can fund it basically on tariffs entirely. And I want to see that brought down over time. But that's the plan on affordability. And accountability, what a can of worms. But I'll just leave you with this to start as a teaser. No one else is saying this. JohnStrand.com, a patriot running for Congress, is openly calling for a simple solution that would fix so many things in one fell swoop. We need to defund the D.C. District Court. Okay, we have a number of district courts throughout the land at the federal level. Why do we have one just for D.C., which is not a state or a region? It's just the seat of federal power, which should be nonpartisan or bipartisan. And yet we have 93+% just vitriolic lunatic leftists all voting for communism, socialism, and Biden to weaponize the government. Those are the people in D.C. voting that way. Those are the juries that you go if you are charged by the government for anything. And those are the courts making the decisions. The D.C. District Court has done more to sabotage President Trump's agenda, which, by the way, an overwhelming majority of Americans across the country all voted for. He won in a landslide, including the popular vote. And yet his entire agenda has been totally stonewalled by the D.C. District Court. It's an abomination. It never should have existed in the first place, but Congress can simply pass a law to defund it, and poof, goes away.
Wow. I mean, that is quite a bit that you just hit the audience with. And I want to dissect them a little bit more. But what I can hear from what you're saying is you've really put a lot of thought into this, and you're coming up with some innovative ways to actually help restore our republic. And I like a lot of this. I mean, the affordability, let me just say, man, if we could live in a world where we abolish the Federal Reserve, the IRS, where we go back to a consumption tax initially, I mean, you're not trying to pull the rug completely out of everything. You're not waving a magic wand and saying we're right back to the original intent, because that would not work. But you're saying, hey, here's a gradual step-by-step process to get us to that point.
Exactly. That's exactly right, Caleb. So we have to be both practical and we have to be passionate about what our beliefs and values are, and our recognition that the founding fathers were absolutely brilliant. And I love to ask people this question. Almost everyone agrees, yes, the founding fathers were brilliant, but why? Do you think that they had higher IQs than you or I do? Anytime I ask people this, they pretty much always go, no, I don't think so. And I say, good. IQ is not the issue. The Founding Fathers' brilliance is rooted in their recognition of the unchanging and inescapable reality of flawed human nature. So given that it is what it is and it's flawed, then we must construct guardrails to channel it in a productive direction, using the profit motive and the incentives that humanity and human psychology is built to utilize. The Founding Fathers did that with such elegance and brilliance. It's breathtaking. And of course, the proof is the greatest force for freedom and prosperity in human history. And there's not even a remotely close second. So,
yeah, no, it's good. And John, we're hitting that hard break here, so I got to come back here in just a second. Hey, this is Caleb Collier with Church and State, and I want to tell you about methylene blue. For a long time now, you've seen the Maha people using methylene blue. I thought I'd give it a try. You know what? It helped me considerably, not only with mental clarity, but also with insomnia. Now, you got to be careful with methylene blue because the market is filled with counterfeit products, but Best 365 Labs is the greatest methylene blue on the market. I'm telling you, take this stuff, enjoy the benefits, and it'll also have a little bit of fun when going to the bathroom. I need you to go to best365labs.com and use that promo code Church and State. You're going to get a discount. You'll also be helping to support Church and State and our pursuit of truth. And we are back, and thank you for staying with us. You're over at churchandstate.media, and we'll go right back to our guest. But real quick, let me plug one of our awesome affiliates, and I'm going to go to mark37.com. As you know, I work for these guys, but I love this company, guys. It's incredible. Every single one of you should have a Ghost phone and a Ghost laptop. If you're tired of your devices spying on you, if you want to get out of the iPhone and Android matrix, there are options. Get a Pixel phone that's been de-Googled using Graphene OS, and your phone will no longer be spying on you. You don't have to worry about necessarily the government or big tech or big whatever harvesting all your information and then selling it out so you get all these advertisements that you were just talking about. Check them out, mark37.com. They're very affordable. Use that promo code Church and State for a discount and to help support us. And one more time, hit the donate button for us. This conversation matters. It's important, and I want to continue to have them. I want to continue to bring these episodes 5 days a week to you. So please hit the donate button, and any amount helps us out. All right, with that, let's go back to John Strand, johnstrand.com, running for Congress. And we're talking about his campaigns and some of his promises here. And I absolutely love some of the things that he's talking about here. I mean, the affordability one is absolutely outstanding. The accountability as well. I want to go to this, John, as I bring you back on here. I've never heard anybody talking about abolishing the D.C. courts, and I am all for it.
I know. There's going to be an uproar of excitement and support for this idea. There's no doubt about it. And obviously, the affordability is what everyone cares about. But, you know, the affordability issue is directly linked to the first pillar, which is security. So when I'm talking about the 2020 Sovereignty Act, a lockdown on immigration, no exceptions, no excuses. We have to lock this down. And that's simply because it has been absolutely exploited as a scam and as a self-enrichment scheme and ultimately as a voter importation project to keep Democrats in power and the uniparty in power. Republicans have a lot of blame in this as well. So I am a Republican, and proudly so, because the Republican Party is based on republicanism. That's a separation of powers with elected leaders at various levels. It is, the republic as a concept. First of all, res publica is the word. So publica is the public. Res is something that the republic is oriented and organized and unified around and about. So people need to understand what a republic is and what it means, okay? I'll tell you what our republic is oriented around. A promise. This is a covenant nation. And it's a reflection or mirror of the original covenant nation, which is the Israelites. So you go back to your Bible. Remember, this is a Judeo-Christian nation. Judeo simply means it's on a foundation of the Old Testament and then was finished and completed in the New Testament. But so many Christians today completely misunderstand this or just forgot about it. And then they're deceived and easily caught up in this anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish or anti-whatever, fervor of like, oh, Judeo-Christian is garbage and Israel is trying to destroy the nation and all this. It's just a lot of ignorance, unfortunately. But again, going back to the beginning, that's the foundation of what God built. Genesis tells that story. And then Genesis tells you that God took a people out of slavery from Egypt and set them free. Of course, that's Moses and a nation that he had created. But then Moses is trying to sit down and talk about security, affordability, and accountability. He's running for office. Now he's in charge of the nation, but he's trying to judge their civil disagreements because people have disagreements. And his father-in-law is Jethro. He comes to him and says, Moses, you're never going to survive, bro. You got to figure this out. You need to collect some strong men of courage and integrity. He said men that love God and hate bribes. That was his criteria. And then set them over groups of 1,110. So this differentiated substantiated, it's a term called subsidiarity, which is to say that you always want to solve problems closest to the source. That is to say, home rule and local control. So our 10th Amendment really enshrines this principle. But the very first republic was Moses when his father-in-law gave him some wise advice, and he implemented this system. So that's really where we need to return in terms of understanding the necessary wisdom of the separation of powers concept It's the second most core concept, second only to unalienable rights given to us by God, not the government. And then a separation of powers, knowing that men are fallible and tend towards tyranny, that we need to separate those with guardrails. And so that republicanism is an essential core of how this whole system works. It's the core of the Republican Party. And so I, of course, am a Republican. But there is a lot of corruption and a lot of work to be done in really major reforms to both political parties, including the Republicans. And we need a real return to the founding principles. And not too many politicians are talking about this, but I'm not a politician. I'm a patriot. That's the difference.
And a maverick to boot. Just so I'm consistent with my audience, I do subscribe to covenant theology, so I'm not a dispensationalist. I'm a Lutheran here, but I'm not going to have that conversation with you. That's not the time and place to have that conversation. But I really appreciate the fact that you brought up Exodus 18. I've talked about this a lot on my show because that is the first time we see a representative government established. And then we go to Exodus 20, which is, if you read the latter part, this is how we engage with each other civically. Don't murder, don't steal, that kind of stuff. And then Exodus 22 is also something I love because it's all about private property rights. So if you want to understand where this country got this idea of a republic, look to the Bible.
100%. The founding fathers quoted Genesis and Deuteronomy and Numbers more than they did anything else, whether it's John Locke and British common law and Montesquieu and famous philosophers. And they were well-read and educated. They understood all of these things. There's a lot of wisdom to be gleaned from the human race over many centuries and millennia. So that's very important to acknowledge and to reclaim in our modern era. Again, reject government schools, teach your children to read, and get them to read the Bible and other great books. Hopefully they'll read Patriot Plea. It will blow your mind, and there is an immense wealth of quotes from the founding fathers and a lot of these different types of references and things that the great men of our heritage learned from and used to form this incredible American experiment. So Patriot Plea's got a lot of amazing stuff in there in an exciting read. But yeah, we need to teach our kids to read and to think, and we need to give them great books and foster that pursuit of knowledge, because the Bible says, without knowledge, my people perish. Or my people perish for lack of knowledge. Yes, absolutely. All right, I want to ask you a question that I ask every politician, and I'm not calling you a politician as a negative. Maybe I should say as a patriot, as a maverick. I'm a big fan of the Bill of Rights. If I would have lived during that time, I would have been an anti-federalist. And so I always like to ask everyone, what is your favorite of the Bill of Rights? The original 10 there. Do you have a favorite one? Oh, man, probably the 10th, just because that kind of sets the framework for all of it to function. Of course, the first and second are sacrosanct and specific. But yeah, make the 10th Amendment great again is a slogan I use all the time on the campaign trail. Everyone in our country knows the First and Second Amendment by and large. But if you say 10th Amendment, the vast majority of people today in the street, eyes glaze over, no idea what you're talking about. And Ninth Amendment as well. Just because it's not written down here doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This is not exhaustive. This is a guardrail to define the terms. So the founders were so smart and eloquent, and but they learned this through experience and through the pursuit of knowledge, and also a pursuit of goodness. So, you can have a lot of empty knowledge. For example, most of the people on television today, Anthony Fauci and Dana Bash and these left-wing nut jobs on fake news media that are just so disgusting to us. And, it's like they're not exactly stupid. They've stuffed their head with tons of knowledge and gone to these fancy schools. They're so smart they can't see out of their own rear end. It's crazy. So in addition to having knowledge, right, you need to have virtue. You need to cultivate the understanding and the pursuit of what God has defined as good. And there is good, which means there is evil. And by the way, avoiding evil is not good. Apostle James says, if you know what you should do and you don't do it, it's sin. So you don't get to be Switzerland. That's not a thing in God's economy.
I love that. I got to tell you, John, I've asked that question to a lot of people, And I'm always really interested when somebody gives me something other than the First or Second Amendment. And look, I'm not throwing stones here. Those are important, and I love them as well. But when you said the 10th, my eyes kind of lit up. I mean, my favorite's the 9th, and they really work hand in hand. I mean, they're really close to each other. But John, I mean, and you don't have to comment on this. Am I detecting a hint of libertarianism in you? You don't. Once again, you don't have to respond to that. That's fine.
There's definitely a strong hint, and I'm not a libertarian by classical definitions. I'm certainly a Christian conservative, but I have a lot of empathy for the libertarian leaning. I certainly favor anarchy over tyranny. So it's really important to define that spectrum, of course, left and right, and people are confused by these dichotomies. I break this all down in Patriot Plea, by the way. You'll find it so fascinating. But the proper power spectrum, which the founders understood, is that the further right you go, the less centralized power. And so completely decentralized, you get to reaching a point of anarchy. But if you go totally to anarchy, you find that you experience the tyranny of chaos. So it becomes tyrannical even on that end. So you don't want to go too far. But if you go further left, you're centralizing power until you reach tyranny. And I'd much rather be leaning right than left.
And I would agree. And the audience knows this. I'm not an anarchist. I'm a minarchist, within the libertarian veins or political philosophy. So, yeah, you nailed it. And a lot of people, when they hear that anarchy, they're thinking of the Antifa types. They're not real anarchists, ladies and gentlemen. They're puppets. They're useful tools. But yeah, you nailed it as far as the explanation, and it's as simple as a pie graph, right? Like it just goes down, and the closer you can get to freedom, you're going to get zero with government.
Yeah, the founders taught us to pursue people's rule, which is a balanced point in the middle of that spectrum. I break it down in my book, and I refer to a book that every American should read. I would actually advocate to make it mandatory reading for children, grade school children, which is The 5,000-Year Leap.
Oh,
it's an
yeah.
easy
Skousen.
read,
Amazing. Yeah, great book.
Just incredible. So that should be just core curriculum for Americanism. And if we were reading the Bible, reading Patriot Plea, reading books like that, Federalist Papers and 5,000-Year Leap, after that you can read whatever you want and you'll figure it out. But if we start with those foundations, and I talk about this in my book, Patriot Plea. In fact, I started at the very beginning by talking about the importance of beginnings and foundations. So, of course, Jesus told us, if you build a house on the sand, the storms will come and it will blow away. But if you build it on rock, and the rock is the truth that he gave us in his word, and if you start there, the storms are still going to come, but your house will remain standing.
I mean, absolutely 100% with you right there. And that foundation, right? I love that you're bringing that up, because there's foundations to our Christianity. There's foundations to our great republic. And the only way truly to make America great again is to go back to both. To go back to Christianity, our roots there, and to go back to this Republican form of government under the Declaration, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights.
Absolutely. And one is dependent on the other. So we will continue to pursue smart policy and to educate and advocate for proper constitutional governance and restoring the American Republic. But it's just not going to work without reviving the spiritual condition of this nation. The Founding Fathers knew this because they experienced themselves, and they certainly taught us. Our Founding Fathers explicitly said this Constitution was written for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the governance of any other. And that George Washington said morality and religion are indispensable pillars to the society that we're pursuing. You'd be a fool to think you can survive without them. And many other quotes, and they're in my book. But the point is, when the church, or when the nation was first started, of course, like 1607 was Jamestown colony, and they actually tried an experiment with socialism. Totally failed. They almost died of starvation, and allowed capitalism to lift them back up. And then as they reached the point of assessing what they were going to do about their relationship with England, because originally they considered themselves Englishmen in a new frontier, but they wanted to be independent, and they pursued the idea of total self-governance, but that was a process. And there was a period where the leaders of the colonies did not feel there was enough virtue in the population to sustain self-governance. They had these conversations. These were messages preached in pulpits. These were discussions held in town halls and town squares. But then there was a spiritual revival called the Great Awakening, very famous, learn it in history, led by Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield from Britain. And these two preachers lit a fire of the Holy Spirit that revived our Christian foundations and the absolute power of God in the hearts of the people. That is what made it possible for the founding fathers to actually, proceed with rebelling against Britain, signing the Declaration of Independence, and launching the experiment that we now benefit from today. But their lessons cannot be lost. We must reclaim them. We will never restore and revive American constitutional government and secure freedom and human flourishing without understanding the need of that foundation and reviving our spiritual health.
Amen. Yeah, well, as we're winding down here, I want to go back to your website, johnstrand.com. I want people to go to the website, order the book, support you in your campaign. You also have a number of great endorsements here. And Chris, if we could pull up the endorsements. But John, talk about some of the people that are endorsing your campaign here.
Yeah, it's important to note that I've never run for public office before. So these people don't owe me political favors. Why is it that a lot of these folks that are older, wiser, and more experienced and successful than I have been so far, like these are incredible patriots and leaders across our nation and here in Southwest Florida. Why would they be putting their name and reputation on the line beside of me? Well, it's because they have seen and lived and worked and fought with me in the trenches for about 6 years now, some of them. This is like since the beginning of the COVID wars and through January 6th and weaponized government and through all kinds of government abuse and cultural struggles. I've been fighting here in Southwest Florida for 4+ years now, defending kids against the sexual grooming of the Pride trans cult. I have been calling at the Naples City Council to declare Naples a sanctuary city for decency, because sex is private and for adults only. So allowing a nonprofit organization to claim a free speech right to groom your children sexually is outrageous, disgusting, completely illegitimate legally. There's no constitutional right or protection of free speech that allows you to groom children for sex. It's freaking ridiculous. But you won't see too many politicians, or really anyone, saying such things, except a few brave patriots that realize the truth matters and we have a responsibility as men and women of faith and American, civic duty to do this. So these people you're seeing on the screen, Data Republican there is an amazing one. If you're on social media at all, and certainly on X, which is where the real political and intellectual conversation is happening, it's where the free speech debates can be had. Thank you to Elon Musk for saving free speech, literally, in modern terms. And Data Republican's an incredible forensic data analyst and scientist discovered by Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk and Turning Point has actually endorsed John Strand, Patriot for Congress, one of our most amazing endorsements that we're very grateful for and excited because, this is the front lines of freedom in our country in the modern era. Charlie, one of our greatest leaders ever, and all of these folks that have been doing whatever God's called them to do in their lane to really contend for the truth, to defend our Judeo-Christian heritage and the culture of assimilation that is necessary for this republic to function, as well as, of course, medical freedom with frontline doctors and many other issues of concern. So these folks are just absolutely amazing, and I'm so honored by their support, their endorsement. And this is a movement that we are leading, that we are rising up right now to say, it's the final countdown. These are not the midterms, but a final countdown to determine if we, the people, are going to engage in our government. Because, Caleb, I'm going to leave you with this. The founders told us that, democracy, right, as this idea. Now, we're a constitutional republic, but democracy is a part of what's going on. And I teach this in Patriot Plea. Democracy is a verb. Constitutional republic is a noun. So as Americans, democracy is what we do. A constitutional republic is what we do it for. Demo means the people, and cracy means rule. So rule of the people. We're not ruled by rulers. We are self-governed, and by the rule of law, we protect each other's inalienable rights and freedoms to the highest degree possible.
I love that explanation and 100% agree with you. I love the endorsements that you're getting here. I formerly worked for Turning Point, and Charlie was an incredible man and is severely missed, and probably could have been president of the United States, to be quite honest. But I want to go back to the website, johnstrand.com. Ladies and gentlemen, go to the website, read all about it, order his book, donate to his campaign. If you live in Florida, John, I know how important doorbelling is. So if you live in Naples or the surrounding area, get down there, do some doorbelling for him. But John, any last words for the audience?
Man, if you are in Florida, definitely go to our website and click the contact button and get in touch with us. You can enlist, as it says on the website, and get involved. We can get you knocking doors or just making phone calls and working on social media to get the name out, because politics and political races are all about name ID, especially when you're a first-time candidate. We just need to get the message out so people hear about it. So please engage with our social media content and share it. Share any dollars that you can. They make a difference right now in this critical last phase of the last 2 weeks here, and we'll put every dollar to use, getting text messages and emails out to people so that they can hear about us. And yeah, we're going to work hard, pray harder, and just trust in the Lord to be sovereign, because he is faithful. He saved me through prison. He's put me in a position to just find incredible excitement, joy, fulfillment, and just pursuing the calling he's placed on my life, understanding that there's a necessary and important part for suffering that he redeems in our life, and that's a strong theme in the book. So yeah, make sure you get Patriot Plea and read it and share it with your friends and family. It's a powerful story that can change your life and change the course of history in this country. And history is what it's all about. It's God's story, and he's allowed us to be actors in this amazing feature film of the human race, and he's calling us to be heroes. He's calling us to actually contribute. We can all be a part of it, and it's just an amazing experience. So thank you so much for the work you're doing, Caleb, and thank you for allowing us to be a part of it here today. God bless you in the United States of America, and keep fighting for her.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. If you hold on one more minute post-production to say our goodbyes, I'd appreciate it. But I just got to say thank you for all your work with the COVID wars, with J6, everything political, and especially thank you for being a Maverick.
It's my honor.
All right. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. John Strand. I want you to go to the website, johnstrand.com. Go check this man out. He's a warrior. Obviously, he's somebody who, and this is, I think, is one of the key points here. He was offered a bribe to accept the lie, and he refused to do so. And those are the type of people that I want to see leading this country. Church and State is brought to you in part by Colonial Life Spokane Independent Agents, Finders Insurance, and Mark37.com. I'm Caleb Collier. I was born for a storm.
Welcome to the fire.
Hey, this is Caleb Collier with Church and State, and I want to tell you about a great product, Liberty Cigars. I know for myself, there's nothing grander than sitting around a campfire, having a great theology discussion with a group of men while smoking a cigar. That's why I love Liberty Cigars. Every cigar has a story to tell. Not only are you going to be smoking the finest cigars on the market, but you're also going to get a history lesson with every single one of them. From George Washington to Thomas Jefferson, the heroes of the American Revolution, generals, presidents throughout history. I'm telling you, I absolutely love Liberty Cigars. I need you to go to libertycigars.com. Use that promo code Church and State. You'll get a discount, and you'll also be helping to support Church and State with everything that we do. Hey, this is Caleb Collier, and I know you're excited for the Church and State podcast. Now, as a Christian patriot, I love precious metals, whether it's gold, silver, palladium, and of course, lead. And this is why I want you to go over to Ponderay Ballistics, don't ask me how to spell it, for all of your ammunition needs. Remember, that's PENDOREILLE ballistics.com for all of your ammunition needs. I want you to head on over to churchandstate.media/shop. Go to Ponderay Ballistics and have a shooting good time. Hey, this is Caleb Collier with the Church and State podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I want all of you to go to Galileo.com. You need to stay connected no matter what comes our way. Whether it's government intrusion or a meteor falling from the sky, Galileo has you connected. As a Marine veteran, I can tell you that communications is essential. Galileo has you connected. Whether it's worldwide coverage, uncensored content, or real-time alerts, Galileo is going to make sure that you're connected with your friends, family, and neighbors. Just head on over to churchandstate.media, scroll over to shop, and hit Galileo.com. Make sure to ask them for a free bivy stick, and make sure to use that promo code Church and State.